What's up, YouTube? We have a very special guest. For those who don't know, this is the legendary Matt from some legendary bands like Human Artifacts, X, Lividity, Horrific Demise. You're still in Horrific Demise, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Do we know we're doing another album? Probably not, but we still talk about it.
Yeah, you only have one album with that, right? That was
Yes,
released in
correct. Yes,
2018, right?
yes, correct.
Okay. And then Human Artifacts. What made you want to bring that back?
It was actually funny. I was actually the way that whole thing actually came back is we were talking about bringing it back, me and Aaron, but then we started using the drum machine, and man, just wasn't feeling it. Didn't it works for other people?
Right.
It wasn't working for me. Someone that was kind of old school, not used to dealing with that stuff.
Right.
So then it went to the point where I was asked to try out for Mortis Gold out of
Oh,
Milwaukee.
really?
Yeah. And it was just one of those things where the drummer asked if I'd be interested. And I was the first, due to my job schedule, because I used to, run basically three nursing home kitchens. So up in Milwaukee. So I was pretty busy. So I declined it. But then he was like, hey, we should still jam together. And then next thing you know, Human Artifacts came about, man. So we just brought it back. Aaron was always in, Jake was always in, so it was pretty effortless after that.
Man, I would play with Mortis Gold. That yeah, legendary. Of course I know him. What was it? Dying Remains is the
Yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
album,
Right
and then
on.
the second one I always forget, but it has like the Adam and Eve looking people on it.
Yeah,
I
man,
like
like
that one better.
they've got
Uh,
like seven or eight albums, or six or seven
yeah, yeah,
albums, or something
yeah,
like that. They got
yeah.
enough. So
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Peaceville stuff. Speaking about Human Artifacts, why is there only one album?
okay, yeah, that's there's just because we're slow and old.
Okay.
That's this. The good news is all the music is recorded for the new album. I mean, done. And the guys already got it ready, mixing it down a little bit. It's just a matter of getting in and getting the vocals tracks.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
just and it's like one of those things. Was like there's two types of ready. There's like some bands can just be stage ready. I mean, we live a distance away, so we don't rehearse all the time.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where like we've had so many shows, it's just been kind of hard to finish it up. So
No, I
but yeah,
totally.
there's going to be another album. Yes, it's technically I would say 90% done.
Does the band name come from Mortal Decay?
That's it. The first thing I was sitting there thinking about it today is like you deserve like the Cupid Doll Award for that's exactly right. It's like the gold demo version when we were looking for band names and stuff. We initially threw around for some stupid. I think I can remember we threw around Erosion of Sanity. I think initially, and then, man, I think I
Or
bounced it off
Guts?
someone's head, and it was just like, dude, you're totally ripping off Gore Guts. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So it's like, well, maybe I could rip off Mortal Decay.
I don't think anyone noticed. I don't think anyone noticed.
Oh, it's funny because I think Joe's a really good friend of mine. All them guys, we grew up together back in the day. So it's just like, yeah, he definitely knew. He was like, did you get that from? It's like, yeah.
You got that from the brutalizing creation demo, huh?
Well, if I had to say like one of like my top 10, Mortal K is definitely in that. You
It's number
know,
one for me.
oh, dude, I know you got like a special. I mean, it's one of those things like where back in the day, it was like they were almost like a house band out in that central Illinois area. They came out to that area a ton,
Right. What, what
back
was
in the
what,
day.
what was one of your favorite shows with Lividity during that time?
I drank a lot then, so it's hard to remember some of them. But there was, we used to play at this place called the 6 Feet Under Club on the U of I campus that was like in like a basement. Yeah, really like close up. I mean, and some of those shows, that's like when the first time when Flesh Grind came out down, first time then actually Jungle Rot back in the early demo days used to come down a whole lot. You know, just that those were just some fun times, man.
Jung,
Just
Ju- Jungle Rot's funny because it's like obviously they're like one of the bigger like newer. Well, I say newer, but they're your era of bands. But they're one of the bigger like normal death metal bands now. But if you look at all their flyers from the '90s, it's all like Regurgitation, Mortal Decay, Lividity, Dead End, like brutal death metal. Like they were writing like old school death metal, but they were playing a lot of shows with like the brutal death metal stuff. That's fair to say, right?
Yeah, well, it was like I think like back in the day because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, so it was a lot of you would sit there and like all depending who you were doing mail with, were trading with, it'd be all about the little flyers that you would get in the mail.
Right.
And I think and I think back then, at least from the mail that we were getting like your internal bleeding used to have the coolest ads back in the day. I mean, they're like, I mean, it was all about who it had. It would be like we'd get stuff from Eternal Bleeding, Dying Fetus, all these bands that in the Flesh Grind, all these bands, and you'd get a lot of Jungle Rot stuff. So, and it was just as I don't even remember how we even contacted each other back in the day, other than a phone for shows. Because I
Yeah.
don't even remember actually when email came around. Because I definitely know that was not something that we had a whole lot of back in the day.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, what do you think of how the brutal death metal scene is nowadays compared to like the early to mid to late 90s?
Dude, I was hoping you were going to ask this question. All right, all
Right.
right.
So
So,
so on my Facebook, they like I guess they meant like how does it go from like fetus, internal bleeding, like mortal decay, and then it gets to like deeds of flesh, disgorge, gorgasm, like late 90s, and then it's kind of like jumps to like, you know, Pyemia, defeated sanity. Like what is like how does it all go? How's the scene nowadays compared to back then?
I mean, the weirdest thing about the whole thing is just how saturated it is. I mean, it's just like, if nobody had cell phones back then. You wanted to go get on a phone, you had to go to a payphone,
Right.
or had to ask somebody to call or get a calling card or something like that. It was. I mean, I do not hide that I'm not a super big fan of the modern death metal of today. I'm just not. You know what I mean? It's not that I don't think that there's two different things. There's talented, and then there's like literally like I enjoy, and it just seems like a lot. I don't know. I just there's so much technicality that it's like I very much hear so many good bands, and there's very people have played this band for me or this band for me, and I'll be like, I don't remember it 5 seconds later.
For me personally, it's kind of like where it's like it doesn't matter how talented you are or like how much crazy stuff you're doing. Sometimes it's too much. Like there's people out there that can do like 50 different vocal styles and do like a million things on guitar, but they try to do it in like one album, and it's like this is too much. Or it's the polar opposite where like a lot of these bands, the entire album is just ding 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 ding, like super fast drums just blast, like there's no melody, no nothing.
I mean, and I'm not, I mean, and I have to be very careful because it's not like I'm trying to hate, but it's just like
No, no, not at
when
all.
Human Artifacts came out, like around what 2007. I mean, I was at a Lividity in 2005, so in like 2006, 2007, this is when the tide was turning from more of because like back in the day, like going back to like initial part of the question, like back in the day, it was like you would have like corpse vomit. I mean, it feels a lot more segregated now. Like you have all festivals that's nothing but like 35 bands all sounding exactly the same.
Yeah, that's the so I would say to answer the question for you, early to mid to late 90s, I would say around like 2003, I would say is kind of like the cutoff. Every single band was kind of like unique. Like in their sound, like you heard Mortal Decay's guitars, you knew it was Mortal Decay. You heard Internal Bleeding, like Frank Rini, you knew it was Internal Bleeding. You heard Corpse Vomit, Maggot Lamb, a great song, you knew it was Corpse
Yeah.
Vomit. Um, I know my stuff. But
Oh,
around like 2003 and like upwards, it kind of got like real. That's when like more bands came out and they were starting to do like the Brodekin Disgorge type of thing, where like every single band was just like a wall of just blasting slam. You know what I
well,
mean?
and that's what the funny thing is. That's why I'm just like going back to, I was lucky enough that I was around when Deeds of Flesh was in their, prime,
Yeah,
doing shows with Disgorge. You know what I mean? I mean, heck, I'm the one that booked the initial first reunion Disgorge show. You know what I mean?
right.
Out at CIM. You know what I mean? And it was like, to me, it was just so much of a more special time where it was new. The reason Disgorge stood out back then is there was at the time nobody liked them. You know what I mean? That was, but now it's like, okay, everybody's trying to take that same formula. It seems like that there's like probably like 3 to 5 bands that people just latched onto, and it just seems like the last 20 years it's just been an evolve of like faster, faster, and it's
Yeah.
not saying that these bands aren't like good. I mean, they probably can play me under the table,
Right,
but
right. But it's
but
like what my personal taste of what I'm accustomed to, more of that like 90s sound, I guess. You know what I mean? It just kind of like it's like they're missing the death metal and they just only have like the brutal.
yes,
You know what I mean? Because it's like like you mentioned like Mortal Skull. Like I'm sure a lot of like these band. Well, I know a lot of these brutal death metal bands from the 90s. Like all these bands, Internal Bleeding. Whatever it may be, influences. Mortal Skull, Immolation. Deicide, Morpheus Descends. All the bands like the 2003s, their influences are like Disavowed, Brodekin, Discords. Like that's I mean, they don't have that classic death metal to kind of go with it, like that immolation sound with the just blasting. Yeah, it gets like lost. Like there's not enough. They're just trying to be brutal just to be brutal. Like there's not like the substance, you know what I mean? Like at least
it,
like
and the substance thing is what you're talking about is important. It's like literally,
yeah,
and I think what you're all those bands have one thing, and they have one thing in common. They have a structure you can grab onto. They have actually what you could call riffs. You know what I mean? That you can pick out. I mean, I don't know about you, but like back in the day, and I'll just not to throw Internal Bleeding out there, but just like say when I got the second demo, like when they had Anointed in Servitude had that breakdown, the first time I heard we heard that, it's just like, oh, you just would play that part, you'd rewind it, play the tape again, rewind it to
yeah,
that part. there's that was what was special back then. It's like, they had riffs, they had hooks, they had stuff that would like bring you in, that make you would want to listen to that again and again and go see the band live. It's like, I don't, and I've seen a lot of these bands that, like I said, with like today, and I'm not, like I said, it's not going to turn into like, well, he's old in his 50s and he's just hating and doesn't understand.
right.
It's like some of these bands can't pull it off live.
No. As a musician and a writer, do you feel like brutal bands and death metal bands nowadays, they just write full albums instead of like making songs? And what I mean by that is kind of what you said with Anointed in Servitude, like, Internal Bleeding has, Driven to Conquer, Anointed in Servitude, Falling Down, Mortal Decay has Consume, Opening the Graves, Apparitions, it's like bands nowadays don't really have like a signature song, like almost like MTV like single. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like there's nothing to where it's like, let me go put on that specific song. They just kind of like write the entire 30-minute album. And then when you're done listening to it, it's like, oh, that was cool. I'm never gonna listen to that again. Like it just like sits on my shelf. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, do you
Yeah,
feel like
and
band
that's the whole,
nowadays just write albums without having that like single mentality?
because I mean, I actually like, I think the Horrific Demise, around the time that I started writing the Horrific Demise album, and before we actually had some of the members that were in it, it was just me and Tony, I think Tipton at the time. Um, I got maybe what I would call disillusioned a little bit. This was so much stuff that was like, maybe what you call a little bit of a midlife crisis. Just like,
Right.
okay, what is Matt Bishop supposed to be? I don't really want to be known for, I kind of, with the Face of Ruin stuff that I did, I kind of reinvented myself a little bit. So it was like, oh, wow, I didn't think he could pull that off. You know what I mean? And then I didn't want to do exactly the same thing. I've been thinking in some ways that maybe I had to do stuff that was like more technical and stuff. I don't know how some of those guys do it. I mean, I would be so stressed to play a show rather than have a good time, which I think is what the whole point of music is. It's like I would be up there just going, "Oh my god," you know what I mean? I have to try to
Yeah.
remember all this stuff because I mean, it's but then I have to do double duty where I got to sing at the same time. You know what I mean? So that's
Right.
like, but I think, like I said, it's just, and it was more of, I mean, keep in mind, I'm also looking at this from someone that's been doing this for a long time. I'm in my 50s. I don't really have a whole lot in common with some of the, it's like, it's funny when I see some of these younger people and stuff like that. It was like, it's funny. It's cool. I appreciate it. But it's just like, wow, we were doing crazy stuff. I mean, like, it's funny that like ancient history is some of the stuff that I got to see, and I'm very blessed for that. They
Yeah.
called it the, I guess, the golden age, but everybody seemed to, everyone was cool back then. There was never any problems. There was never any fights. There was never any disagreements. You know what I mean? Yeah, we would bust balls, but you know what I mean? We never got to the point to where we were like hateful against people, or with different styles. And it was cool to see like where bands, then there was like the bands that wanted to do it for more of a hobby, which is I always been. I've never had any aspirations of wanting to be like a Nile or on that level of touring. I mean, no way. It's just not my
Yeah,
thing.
just
You know
touring
what I mean?
every
I
day.
like playing shows and I like doing all that stuff, but I don't like, I chose the route of honestly having two kids and having a family and stuff like that and being stable over just feeling like I had to hustle to get, every little thing. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like a fun life to me. You know what I mean? And if
No.
anything, everything that goes up must come down. You're only going to be so popular for so long, and then you're just going to be,
Yeah, for sure.
scrapping. That's just not my thing, man. Not my thing.
For sure. Matt needed that 401k.
Oh, dude,
He said, I need that
I need something, man.
401k.
I like to be able to eat, man. I like to be able to eat, man.
Yeah, right. How do you feel about like a lot more of like the hardcore crowd coming into brutal death metal nowadays?
I mean, I'm one of those guys that like I actually like a wide variety of music. It's like a lot. I mean, it's no secret that like a lot of the early like graphicness of like the Lividity stuff came from like '80s hair metal. I mean, just that whole like scene and stuff. That's where we kind of took some of that stuff from. You know what I
Wasp.
mean? We thought it was funny. It was like, look how them dudes are acting like idiots. We can do
Just
that.
the wasp of brutal death metal.
Oh, dude. I mean, I listened, yeah, a lot of that stuff, and I'm actually like, I mean, I've gone through like my very first band that I ever played in when I was like 17 was a hardcore band called Rivethead and stuff like that. So it's like, I mean, I used to get into a lot of that stuff. It's like goes in waves and stuff like that. But I like
Yeah.
it. I just don't understand like the samurai kicks where I've seen a couple of people really get hurt at some shows lately, and I'm just like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't quite get, but
So you're
my
not like
my son
the
keeps reminding me I'm just too old and I don't get it.
don't get it, just the windbreakers just beating up people, knocking out teeth at shows.
Oh, I mean, I saw this girl hit this guy with his elbow so clock right in the face that I was just like, literally, it almost made me cry. It was so brutal, man. This guy just was gushing blood everywhere, man. I was like,
Yeah. That
goodness,
ain't
bro.
for me. That's that ain't for me.
Yeah, I used to have the days, man, where I could get up close to the stage and do all that stuff. Now it's a little more difficult, but yeah, it's still a good time though.
Yeah. What other music do you like besides metal or like classic rock?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm a classic rock guy. Like like '80s stuff, a lot of the thrash, death metal and stuff. And
What's
um,
something weird? What's like some like what do they call that? Like the when you uh I can't
Hall
think
and
of the word.
Oates, Hall and
Yeah,
Oates,
like yeah, like what's something that like out of the genre, like out of metal or out of
Hall and
rock? Like
Oates, Queen. I'm like was really big on. Um, Gosh, trying to think. Yeah, something that's like James Brown,
okay.
like Teddy Pendergrass, like Al Green, like some of that stuff. I mean, dude, that was a lot of the stuff like in those early Lividity days. Me and Aaron used to
Yeah.
listen to on the way to practice and stuff like that, just laughing our ass off the whole time. Like James Brown was like a big yeah. We used to a lot of James Brown, a lot of James Brown.
Hilarious. There you go. Why did you actually what happened with Lividity? Like, did you get fired? Did you decide to leave? What was the story?
I was asked to leave. Do I know why I was asked to leave? Not really. You know what I mean? It was just we were working on and this is keep in mind that everything's good now. You know, what I mean,
Right.
keep in mind at the time, a little fucking irritated. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. Because I mean, sometimes as adults, you know what I mean, especially when you've been jamming together that long, and I always kind of felt that not that I was a founding member of Lividity, but I always thought that man, me and Dave have been in the trenches at that point in time. So I did have some some family stuff where I was getting divorced and was made a move, so it was a little harder for me to get to practice. And but I was just doing my part. We even played like on that you know maybe not I was sober enough then a little bit, maybe not perfect, but none of us were. So, but yeah, it was just one of those things. One day, just they did want to make music with me, and I was like, all right. So nothing
Uh,
bad or anything. It was that
right.
I was a little mad about it at the time, but I was kind of as time went on and just kind of I got to do other things and just kind of like, and kind of just let it go, which is quite a few years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. It was just cool. Yeah. It's just kind of,
That was what,
I
20,
mean,
20
I just,
years ago at this point?
yeah, it's
Just
just one of those
about.
things where it seems like a lifetime ago, to be honest with you.
Right, yeah.
It's like, because a lot of people don't even realize, some people might realize, you might realize, but some people don't. It's like we actually have 3 generations of lividity in human artifacts right now. It's like the guy actually, Jake's actually a current member. Me from like the era of the first, demo to the first 3 albums, and then you had Aaron, who was actually the OG singer on the first demo. So I mean, we're all like old friends, and like I said, man, I mean, me and Dave are cool. You know what I mean? Everyone's got to do what they got to do, man. And it worked out for the everything worked out for the best, is what I would say. You know what I mean? I'm not really that. I know there's so many people that's like, oh, I listen to the Sew Your Tits CD, and when you say this or when you say this, and it's just like, man, if I did that today, I'm surprised I haven't been canceled already, to be totally honest
Yeah.
with you. I'm surprised someone hasn't gone and listened to something and said, you said this on this.
It was the 90s.
Yeah, but that
When
stuff seems to come back on everybody else. It's been lucky enough not to come back on me, so it's been kind of nice. So
I don't think Lividity is the type of band anyways where it's like the short-haired, blue-haired, like social justice type of person would even understand the scene to even come in and like try to cancel, you know what I mean? I don't think that like
well,
anyone who like I don't
and
think anyone who's into like death metal knows, and then you're like niche for death metal, you know, like the normal like Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse crowd doesn't even know of Lividity, but then it's like when you get into Lividity, it's like if you know Lividity and you're like that type of person to cancel it, it's like why would you? You know what I mean? It's kind of like out of the territory.
well, yeah, and it's just like, we had fun. You know what I mean? I mean, like I
Yeah,
said,
yeah, for
it's like
sure.
I actually drove by, like I had since I moved back to Illinois, I actually drove past like not too long ago where it all began, where like this is the basement where we had the very first practice with all the original demo lineup, deciding this is what we were going to do. You know what I mean? So, and it's like I said, Jay, I'm proud of Jake for what he's doing with the band now. You know what I mean? It's like I had no problem with Vaughn. I got no problem. We've all been cool. I mean, like I said, that thing has been squashed like so many years ago. That's just not even a big deal. You know what I mean? It's just like it was just everybody's got to do what they got to do, and it gave me a chance to kind of just decide what I want to do. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. I'm just a very groove oriented guitar player. It's like
Yeah.
it's just kind of like
I was gonna say Human Artifacts was kind of like a continuation of the Lividity sound, but it was more mature. Like it had a lot of like it was almost like a New York death metal album. I mean, we mentioned internal bleeding like 20 times already, but yeah, it kind of had like more of like those internal bleeding parts with the signature Lividity voice, the
I just
type of like
really was just
thing.
like really influenced by. I think like being in my younger days, I was definitely influenced by like a lot of that stuff because then it was so much different from like the stuff you'd hear like your Cannibal Corpse, your Morbid Angel. It was just so much different. And then when the underground tape trading scene, that just kind of just I was like a sponge, man. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like I gravitate to that era a lot, where I feel like, oh, that's that could be not that it's like copying or anything like that, but you could tell it comes from that era.
What was it like during that like weird like we kind of mentioned where like brutal death metal was in like 2007 like 2010 where it was just like everything was just like blast and you had like the deathcore wave kind of happening and then um Unique Leader by that time kind of switched to like technical death metal so you had like Spawn of Possession and like those type of bands now and Decrepit Birth like what was it like releasing Human Artifacts in like 2007 kind of like away from like the golden era.
Oh, it did not. Well, it's like I kind of was starting to touch on it a little bit before. I think when we first I dropped the band, things were changing in metal. It was to the point everybody was getting faster, everybody's getting more technical, everybody was doing like almost like the complete opposite of that. And we
Right.
didn't do a whole lot of shows. You know what I mean? We didn't really get a chance to push it like we wanted to. But I definitely think after us taking time off, and then when we came back in 2023, you know what I mean? I think that the ties were kind of switching back to where you see a lot more bands trying to actually I see more bands now not trying to do what everybody else is doing, to have a little more identity to it.
It seems like the 90s stuff has kind of come back in the past five
Yes.
years.
Yeah, the
You know, you
grooves
see a
come
lot of
back a
like
little bit.
16-year-olds at kids nowadays compared to like back in the day. It'd be like just like 30-year-olds, like 8 30-year-olds at your show. Now it kind of, you get those like 20, 16-year-old kids coming, A lot more kids are getting into the more like 90s stuff. A lot of people are getting into the like 90s sound again. Um, so would you say that you see that more?
Yeah, I just think I definitely think that like the single, like, kind of like, I mean, we Human Artifacts basically is a no rule type of thing the way we do music. I mean, there's like we don't have any like rules. We're not trying to be like a slam band. We're not trying to say, okay, this song has to have a slam riff. Okay, we're just trying to say, okay, this is a good riff. What do we think? Let's go for it in the realms of what we're doing. you
Right.
know and it's just, like I said, there's just so much different stuff that these kids are doing these days, and like they're like, it's exciting for me, to someone that like, maybe when they're saying that I wasn't even born, like
I know.
we went
Yeah,
at
I
the
know.
Shamrock Festival, like when we were selling some of these CDs, they're like, oh, how long has this been out? And I'm like, 20 years.
I know. Well, it's kind of weird because it was like you did that. Lividity got Vaughn released the Abused in 2006. Sarcophagy released their album in 2010.
Yeah,
So it was like and I'm saying this because they were all like really like what I think of like classic brutal death metal. Like they're kind of like 90s brutal death metal from like the golden era released like 10 years too late. That was kind of the problem, Like
yep.
I feel like if, you know, your album was even like 2001 compared to like 2007, like, just like that weird era where just like true brutal death metal was just kind of like dead, I guess you could say, like dead as in like no one
Yeah,
cared.
and
No
also,
one,
people were also at that point in time, like, I was a little bit pigeonholed by what I was doing before. Like, they're automatically going like, okay, because there's a lot of people that have. I mean, I don't like to use the term other than I can use the term blessed. I mean, there's like people that, man, that are like, still go back to those first three Lividity albums, and it's like, oh, I love this. Where there's certain things. I'm glad you enjoyed that, because I sure have a hard time listening to that anymore. You know what I mean? Where just I felt like I could do better. You know what I mean? It's just like with the Human Artifacts album, I just feel like I was telling you earlier, it's just like, I have a hard time putting down what's in here onto the recording. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I'm not comfortable in the studio. The studio is just one of those entities where you guys see some people that thrive in it. To me, it just feels like someone's like staring at me the whole time. And
What's your least favorite Lividity that you did? Would you say I forget the name, but would you say it's the purple one,
uh,
like the 2000 one?
my biggest, like I said, my biggest problem with like anything that I've really ever done up until like the Face of Ruin album that did, and then the Face of Ruin album, honestly, was the first album I was ever able to kind of capture what my vocals sound like live in the studio. You know what I mean? And it's like that there's a little more aggression. I mean, I do have the low, but there's sometimes a little more live, a little more aggression, old school aggression to it, and that just only comes from being on a stage and getting excited. I
Right.
can't replicate that in the studio, which is a lot of the reason why my vocals sounded
Some
low and had that
some of
low
the
whispery thing. Because me
yeah.
trying to get excited in the studio is just very difficult. But yeah, I just wish we had better production on our albums, man. We were just so
Yeah.
green in this. I mean, we didn't know how to do any. We didn't know how to really ask, hey, this is what we want. We'd be limited on time based on only the money the label gave us. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I could change anything, I would. It'd be hard for me to say, but if I had to say, like, see, but there's some songs on the age that are like, the staples, like Oozing.
I
You
like
know,
Sodomy Ritual.
So, yeah, I mean, and that was a song like back in the day we used to play all the time. There was just like a lot of songs we used to play that. That's a fun song, and that was just, I think you could kind of see where we were trying. I think that album took more risks. I definitely think the album that we were when we the one that Till Only the Sick Remain was just us trying to kind of it was a more polished production, but it still wasn't
Yeah.
exactly what we wanted. You know what I mean, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So.
What are some of your favorite Lividity samples?
Well, of course, the pussy lover one, man. That was, I mean, and I can't take that was Dave's brilliant idea. I can't take any credit for that, man.
That's
But
hilarious.
and the funny thing was, is like we had the music recorded, and Dave went in solo and actually put the samples in, so we didn't even know that was going to happen.
That was hilarious.
So then then this like literally like when he played it for us first time, just yeah, it was hard not to laugh and stuff like that. But yeah,
What's it
that's a good one.
what's it like having like a wife and kids with this type of music?
My lady, I mean, I've been with the lady I've been with now, man. My kids, actually, I never pushed my kids towards metal and stuff like that. My son over the years is actually like, getting brutal and as a guitar player and wanting to do vocals and stuff like that. He's 22. They don't
Right.
really, my folks don't even care. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just like, I
Dad's
mean,
silly college band.
well,
It's not
I
like, oh
mean,
my God, you said
and if a
that.
lot of people really got down to what Lividity meant back then, it was, and I, not to speak for Dave, but I mean, I can, I think, because he would feel the same. It was never meant on like bashing women.
Yeah, it wasn't
It,
like
it, it
yeah,
was almost like they would get involved and they'd start giving me a hard time. They'd get up to the front of the stage and start harassing me back, and it just be funny as hell.
that's
You know what I
hilarious.
mean? And, that was just kind of just something that evolved. And really, our drummer was the one that, had like a lot of that flair and with the lyrics. And he was, because he was writing a lot of the earlier demo lyrics and stuff like that. And that's just where it all kind of evolved from. I can't take all the credit for being totally obnoxious.
Right. Roger from Mortician. So I asked my Facebook. Roger from Mortician wants to know what you think of the sequel trilogy of Star Wars.
Fuck, man. Yeah, I was stoked about it at the time, man. I mean, that's my boy, man. And if anything, I should apologize for is I should hurry up and get that Womp Rat EP out that I actually am sitting here on my computer that I just need to finish the vocals and mix it. And but yeah, I remember when they came out, I was stoked.
What what
Now,
what do you say is the worst one?
Rise of Skywalker by far.
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, yeah.
You think it's worse than Last Jedi?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The
Okay.
Last Jedi at least looked good, and there was actually like a few. I mean, yeah, there was some like the stuff with Luke, with the character direction and stuff like that, and some of the other
I
stuff.
think Ray Skywalker like it depletes anything of credibility to where it's not like
Oh
I
yeah.
don't see how it can be not the worst sequel film.
Well, I mean, I actually thought I thought the cinema. I mean, like I said, I don't think Ryan Johnson had any business. I mean, I don't so much blame Ryan Johnson for it. I blame more Kathleen Kennedy because I just don't think he had any business even directing a Star Wars movie to begin with. Because nobody knew who he was, let alone And I think a lot of it was, man, it just. I thought the cinematography was good. It was like I was excited about it because we didn't get any Luke at all in The Force Awakens. So we didn't get any Luke at all. So I was stoked to see how it was. So I think after it hit me, but then yeah, there's some pretty weird stuff in that and stuff like that. With it's definitely not, I would say, a great movie. I'm not going to say it's in my top. It's definitely down there, right next to The Rise of Skywalker. It's not like much better.
You would say the Force Awakens is the best sequel, or
Yes,
The Last Jedi?
yeah. And I did think
The
I did
Force
think
Awakens.
they just could have done like so much different. And I think they're actually in the I think they're I mean I think they're in the process of like trying to figure out. I mean, I've been doing a lot of research and seeing like stuff people have been talking about, and I really think they're going to retcon the sequel trilogy somehow. I definitely, I've been looking in the trades and stuff like that, and a lot of times the Hollywood trades actually has like a lot of info as far as like people that are under contract, the things that they don't talk about, and I think they're going to somehow find a way to bring back Anakin Skywalker, which they're probably going to use the World Between Worlds to do it. You
Yeah,
know, because they're going to have to get away. They realize that they can't get away. They can't move forward with a Ray trilogy because no one believes that whole Ray Skywalker shit. No, I mean they would be better off to almost have her turn evil, make her a Palpatine, embrace the dark side, and that would make more sense.
I I just kind of hate how what they did to Kylo Ren's character because it was kind of like polar opposite of Darth Vader, where Darth Vader starts off very evil and then at the end he's very light side redeemed, whereas Kylo Ren, he starts off in the Force Awakens very like innocent but also dark, like he's kind of stuck between like he's not fully dark side, he's questioning stuff. And then Last Jedi, he kind of is very, dark and evil, but then he gets redeemed at the end of uh Rise of Skywalker. I wish they would have just made him evil so it was like polar opposite of Vader. I feel like that would have been better for his character.
Yeah, I think
Is
he's
that
coming back. I really, they, I think they're going to somehow figure out a way to bring him back. You know what I mean? Or somehow, some way.
right?
I don't know exactly how they're going to do it and stuff like that. I mean, I'm an Empire guy. That's actually my favorite.
That's your favorite?
Yeah.
I like Return.
Oh, equally as good. Equally as
Yeah,
good.
I like Return because of like the Palpatine and Vader and Luke type of stuff like that. Like the
Right.
ending of that kind of like really is like probably one of my favorite sequences.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Um, Empire, I feel like it's a little bit too much Han Solo flying in space at times for me.
Right. I get it. I
It's
get it.
kind of like very like soap opera-y, like kind
Yeah.
of.
No, I get it. You're
New
live.
Hope,
You're live.
original Star Wars New Hope is obviously magnificent. Started it all. Prequels. I'm gonna say it. Phantom Menace is the best prequel. I
I
I
definitely. Yeah. I mean,
I
I
love the
definitely think.
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, it was
It
good.
it it follows. It is the most original trilogy feeling prequel.
Yes, I definitely Attack of the Clones wasn't one of my favorite. There was like moments of cool, you know what I mean. But I thought Revenge of the Sith was actually pretty cool. I
It's a
enjoyed that.
little too ADHD at times.
Oh yeah,
They like
all over
close
the
it.
place.
Yeah, it's kind of like really all over the place, which is kind of why I love Phantom Menace, but it had a lot of backlash from your generation.
Oh yeah, right.
My generation kind of seems to be giving it a second chance in recent years.
Well, I think ever since the kind of Disney done, a lot of people not liking the direction they've been going. I think a lot of people have been going back and revisiting the prequels and
Yeah,
just
like
going, "Hey, these are pretty kick
the
ass." You know
sequels
what
were
I
so
mean?
bad that it makes the Phantom Menace look good.
Well, I tell you what, that new Darth Maul animated series was fantastic.
Yeah, I gotta watch it. Did you like Obi-Wan?
I didn't hate it.
I didn't care for like every anything that wasn't just like the scenes with like Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Invader, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was like
I didn't like necessarily the Leia stuff that they
yeah,
threw in
I could
there.
do out with I could do without like the Leia and the Luke. Well, the Luke was fine, but I could do without like the Leia or the
Yeah, I've
other like
unfortunately, I'll be
Inquisitor
honest with you, man.
person.
I've checked out a little bit. You know what I mean? I mean, I do. There's nothing more than I want the. I like the first season as the Mandalorian, and then like some of the stuff is just like the Book of Boba Fett and some. It
Yeah,
just
I don't get into any of like the Mandalorian stuff. My problem with that stuff is it's like how much stuff was Boba Fett and Darth Vader doing? There's so much content like comic books and video games where it's just you fight Darth Vader, you fight Boba Fett, Boba Fett's here, Darth Vader's there. It's like how are they doing all this crap all the time? Like they're the busiest people in the galaxy.
right, right,
And you
right.
can't
Yeah, I
kill
mean,
them, so they're just always getting their ass beat and then they like fly away. Like Vader always gets his ass beat. Boba Fett always gets his ass beat because they can't kill him because they're in Empire and Return. You know what I mean? So they got to do that.
right, right.
There's too much content of Vader and Boba Fett anymore.
Oh, I know, and it's I don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's been kind of depressing to watch. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I've
I'm.
kind of like been like diving over into the Marvel stuff and checking
Yeah,
all that shit out ever since I've been a little bit disappointed with like the Star Wars shit. So I've been like
yeah.
diving into a little bit of that.
But well, that was the 40 minutes of free Zoom
Oh heck
on
yeah,
on.
dude! Perfect. Fucking,
But well, thank you,
you're
Matt.
welcome, man. Thanks for everything.